The first thing I noticed wasn't the sound, it was the silence. The kind of silence that presses against your ears so hard it feels like something is missing, like the world itself paused and forgot to breathe. Then came the faint creak of my bedroom door, slow and deliberate, like someone was trying not to be heard. My eyes snapped open to the darkness, my heart pounding so violently it felt like it might tear through my chest. And then I saw her. A figure standing in the corner of my room at 3 a.m., trembling, barely visible in the dim light leaking through the blinds. For a second, I thought I was dreaming, until she took a step forward and whispered, barely holding herself together, "I had nowhere else to go." Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that one moment can change someone's life forever, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. My name is Michael Carter, and until that night, my life had been painfully ordinary. I lived alone in a small house in a quiet neighborhood in Ohio, the kind of place where nothing ever really happens. My days were predictable: work at a hardware store, come home, microwave dinner, maybe watch something mindless before bed. I had convinced myself that this was enough. That a quiet life meant a safe life. But that illusion shattered the moment I realized there was a stranger standing inside my room. Every instinct told me to panic, to shout, to grab my phone and call the police. But something about her stopped me. Maybe it was the way her shoulders shook like she was freezing, even though it wasn't that cold. Or the way her eyes, wide and desperate, seemed less threatening and more broken. She looked young, maybe in her early 20s, with tangled brown hair clinging to her face and a thin jacket that clearly wasn't enough for the night. Her name, I would later learn, was Sarah Whitaker. I sat up slowly, trying not to startle her, my mind racing through 1,000 possibilities. Break-in. Trap. Danger. But none of those thoughts matched what I was seeing. This wasn't someone trying to harm me. This was someone who had already been harmed by the world. She didn't move closer at first. She just stood there, as if waiting to be told to leave. As if she expected rejection before I even said a word. And that's when something shifted inside me, something I didn't even realize had been missing for years. Compassion. I asked her how she got in, and she hesitated, glancing toward the hallway like it held some kind of answer. Eventually, she admitted the back door had been unlocked. I felt a brief wave of anger at myself for being careless, but it faded quickly when I saw how her hands trembled. She wasn't here because she wanted to be. She was here because she had no other choice. Over the next hour, sitting across from each other in my dimly lit kitchen, her story began to unfold in fragments. She spoke in a soft, uneven voice, like each word cost her something. She had been staying with someone, a man she trusted, but things had turned dark. Controlling. Violent. She didn't go into details, and I didn't push. Some wounds don't need to be reopened to be understood. What struck me most wasn't just what she had been through, but how alone she had felt. No family nearby. No friends she could call. No place that felt safe. Until, somehow, she ended up walking through my neighborhood, spotting a house with a light left on, and taking a chance on the only door that wasn't locked. It terrified me, the thought that she could have walked into someone else's house instead. Someone cruel. Someone dangerous. But instead, she ended up in mine. And for reasons I still can't fully explain, I knew I couldn't turn her away. The next few days were strange, like stepping into a life that wasn't mine. Sarah stayed in the guest room, barely speaking at first, moving through the house like a shadow. I gave her space, unsure of what she needed, but made sure she had food, clean clothes, and a place to sleep without fear. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she began to change. It started with small things. A quiet thank you when I left a plate of food outside her door. A faint smile when I asked if she needed anything from the store. Then one morning, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, sunlight hitting her face in a way that made her look less like someone running from something and more like someone beginning to heal. She told me she wanted to leave, that she didn't want to be a burden. But I could see the fear behind her words. Leaving meant going back into the unknown, back into a world that hadn't been kind to her. So I told her she could stay as long as she needed. No conditions. No expectations. That was the moment everything changed. Over time, Sarah opened up more. She laughed occasionally, though it was always soft, like she wasn't used to hearing her own happiness. She started helping around the house, insisting on cooking meals or cleaning up, as if trying to repay a debt that didn't exist. But it wasn't about repayment. It was about dignity. About reclaiming a sense of control over her life. For me, something shifted too. The loneliness I had grown so used to began to fade. My house felt alive in a way it never had before. Conversations replaced silence. Shared meals replaced solitary routines. I realized that in helping her, I had unknowingly helped myself. But healing isn't linear, and the past has a way of creeping back in when you least expect it. One night, weeks after she first appeared in my room, I woke up to a sound again. Not the eerie silence this time, but muffled sobbing. I found Sarah sitting on the floor in the hallway, her arms wrapped around herself, shaking uncontrollably. The past had caught up with her, flooding her mind with memories she couldn't escape. I didn't try to fix it. I didn't offer empty reassurances. I just sat beside her, quietly, letting her know she wasn't alone. Sometimes, that's all a person needs, not solutions, not answers, just presence. That night marked a turning point. Not because her pain disappeared, but because she faced it. And she didn't face it alone. Months passed, and Sarah began rebuilding her life piece by piece. She found a part-time job at a local bookstore, something simple but meaningful. She started seeing a counselor, taking steps toward healing that required more courage than most people would ever understand. And little by little, the fear that once defined her began to loosen its grip. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, she told me something that stayed with me. She said that night, when she walked into my house, she wasn't just looking for a place to hide. She was looking for a reason to believe that not everyone in the world would hurt her. That maybe, just maybe, kindness still existed. And somehow, by sheer chance or fate or whatever you want to call it, she found that reason. Before we reach the end of this story, I want to ask you something. If this story has touched your heart even a little, if it's made you believe in the power of small acts of kindness, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. You never know who might need this reminder today. And here's a special request: before the story ends, drop a comment saying, kindness still exists, if you truly believe one small act can change a life. Because it can. I've seen it with my own eyes. Sarah didn't stay forever. Eventually, she moved into her own place, a small apartment not far from mine. It was a big step, one that came with its own fears, but also a sense of independence she had fought hard to reclaim. The day she left, she hugged me tightly, longer than words could ever express, and thanked me for something I never thought was extraordinary. But that's the thing about kindness. It rarely feels extraordinary when you're giving it. It feels like something simple, something anyone would do. And yet, for someone on the receiving end, it can mean everything. Even now, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, remembering that moment, the silence, the creaking door, the figure in the corner of my room. It could have been a story of fear, of danger, of regret. But instead, it became a story of hope. Because sometimes, the most unexpected interruptions in our lives aren't there to harm us. Sometimes, they're there to remind us who we are capable of being. And on one quiet night at 3 a.m., a stranger walked into my room and changed both of our lives forever.